Hello everyone, this is Sharntum again. I'm going to try to speak up a little bit, but I'm going to have to keep a little bit quieter because other people around me are trying to sleep. I've also been told that I do not sound very enthusiastic when I'm trying to be quiet, which obvious for why. So I want to go ahead and talk to you guys a little bit more about Redstone for mazes, parkour, challenge maps, adventure maps, all these different things that Redstone could be such a good help for, and sometimes people don't even use it at all. Now, one of the big assumptions, basis is another word for assumption if you're into science. The main assumption I'm going to be using for this is that you already have a basic understanding of Redstone. If you don't, I encourage you to check out a tutorial by Generic V called Redstone Academy. I watched a few episodes and I think that it's a very good one for someone who's just learning Redstone, doesn't really know much about it. So for this I'm going to be doing it completely in single player. I tried recording this a little bit earlier, but for whatever reason my microphone went all staticky. And I'm going to be building this as I talk to you, so if I end up going silent, that's probably why my brain needs a little focus. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to want to talk about is piston tape. Reason being, piston tape is a very good way of setting things. One of the things I use it for is in my map on zero.miner.org called Shra. I have multiple paths. Still getting used to this new touchpad mouse on my laptop. There are multiple pathways in Shra, which people would originally be allowed to go ahead and choose on their own. I was finding that more often than not, people would just ask someone to guide them through it, and what's the point of even doing a maze if you're just going to have someone guide you through it? So now all my pathways are force changed. You don't have any option in it. No, I don't want to do that. And it's a real shame because I want people to be able to go back and say, oh, I didn't get to try this out. Let's see what it's like this time. And I'm sure, like, I was talking to Europe the other day, and I wasn't talking to him specifically. I was reading one of his posts on the forum discussing that specific topic, where mazes like Shra, you really, once you've gone through them, you want to go back and do them again to see what the other pathways are like. And there are a few other mazes that use the same basic idea of multiple pathways, but they do, for the most part, leave it open to your choice. With Shra, most of the pathway changes are, it's either this way or it's that way. So there's no real need to use a piston tape for that. You can just use a T flip-flop and it will work fine. For the main pathway, there's one pathway that leads you to a cave system underneath, and at the end of it you reach a tower. Now from that tower there are 4 directions you can choose from. Because of that, I used a piston tape to do the pathway change on it. So that's one really good use for piston tape, is having multiple pathways in a maze, or if you're doing an adventure map, that too. Another way you can do it is progression in a map. Let's say you have an adventure map where the player has to do X, Y, and Z in order to get through it. You could either use a lock system, which takes up quite a bit of space, or you can use a series of piston tapes where the input only works once on each button. You can either have it order specific, or you can have it order in specific, I guess you can say it is. Basically just have it so once you push it, you can't push it again. And there are a few ways of doing that I can think of off the top of my head. That's one of the things that I'm particularly good with. Once I know what the circuit's going to be doing, I instantly see it. I could see exactly how the circuit should be laid out right in my head. But annoying at times, but oh well. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. And those ones need to push first too. So what I'm going to do is build up here. Now one thing to keep in mind with piston tape is there's actually two forms of piston tape. This is what I call a 2-gap because there's 2 gaps in it that are open for pushing blocks into. And there's a 1-gap where, as the name suggests, there's only 1 gap for you to push things into. The problem with the 1-gap is that it's very sensitive. If you don't have perfect timing on it, you're going to run into problems. It's a pain in the ass, but if you want an odd number of outputs, you have no choice. So right now I'm putting in a monostable circuit. This is used to make sure that the pulse from the button only lasts for 1 tick. I don't remember how long exactly a tick is in game, but I do know that currently a button push is 8 ticks. I've heard that some of the 1.4 snapshots are showing it coming up to 10 ticks, which is a bit annoying. I'm trying to clear my throat there a little bit. Now let's see. I'm going to need to put in some delay in the bottom one because that's going to be the second one to push. And I'm going to put a little bit extra delay just to be sure. Now I'm sure many of you have seen the piston tape work before, but oh, I forgot to put the correct delay on there. But what's the point in talking about something if I don't demonstrate it, you know? So this is a very simple tool that's very useful too. Now this wiring I have here is a bit bulky. It's very easy to clean it up to where you have a very compact area. One of the things that you can use the piston tape to replace is called a shift register. It's a series of data flip-flops that use the clock input to switch the, well, not switch, to have the data in the first flip-flop go to the second one to the third one to fourth one, and you usually want to do this in reverse order, so you have fourth to fifth, third to fourth, second to third, first to third, second, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm trying to remember, one of the things that's used for typically is if you are, well, let's say you're making a calculator, for example. I know that has nothing to do with mazes, but let's say you're making a calculator. You're going to want to have the digits display and be able to move over, well, one to the left every time it gets input. That when you're putting in a long number, you don't have to worry about things going in weird. And for something like that, you would normally need a linear shift register. Now, if you use instead a piston tape, you're using up a lot less space, and the data is going to a different point. Of course, then you also have to consider that's only for a single digit, but that's besides the point right now. I can't think of a better example of how it's more compact. I was talking a couple minutes ago where you have a system where you want them to push buttons in a certain order. Normally you would have to use a combination of AND gates to where you're basically making a door lock. And you can use a piston gate instead. It takes a lot less space and you can have the same basic effect. To make it so you have to push them in a certain order, that's a little bit different. One of the things you could do is have just one AND gate at each one, except for the first one, And the piston tape sets at a certain position. Each time the correct button gets pushed, it progresses one forward, and that unlocks the AND gate for the next one to be pushed, which pushes it one forward again, and it keeps on going. Let's see, in mazes, like I use it for forcing people down specific paths so that they don't all follow the same path. In a parkour, you could use it again for changing paths. You're more likely to use a T flip-flop because it's unlikely that you're going to have constantly changing more than one path to change it from. Though that would be a pretty neat challenge to put in there. One thing that I've been attempting to experiment with is using piston tapes for note block music. Now, normally with note blocks being made into songs, you have this huge expanse of note blocks where you have to chase the song around to hear it properly. And one thing that I was thinking is, since a lot of songs use specific chords over and over again, why not just have the chords set up and have it play them in a specific order? Now, I was originally thinking this before pistons were even added, and I could never get the wiring right because it required a big old tangled mess of redstone just to have it do that. But with the introduction of pistons and the piston tape, I started to realize that there was better potential now. If you take, for example, House of the Rising Sun by the I listened to it as played by the Animals. It wasn't originally written by them. I don't remember who first wrote it. But you have a song like that where it's basically 5 chords played on the guitar the entire time. There's also the organ being played at certain points. Well, all throughout the song, but certain points where it can really be heard, which is a little bit more complicated. But just taking the guitar part into consideration, you have 5 chords. If you have each one set up to a piston tape with solid blocks placed in the right positions and a clock set up to where the timing is right, you put each piston through once, it triggers a monostable circuit to send a single pulse through that plays each note in the chord in sequence. The hardest part of that's going to be setting up the clock, but I am hoping to test out that idea pretty soon. I really have to uninstall this mini-map. It's giving me nothing but trouble. And this mouse is really hard to get used to. But anyway, going back on topic, that's piston tapes. I'm trying to think of what I can talk about next time specifically, because there are so many things. Next time I will probably go over a circuit that I created for MindMaze on zero.miner.org called Straw. I call it the single person room. It's meant for any time you have multiple people running through a course, map any type, and you don't want more than one of them in a specific area. Now, a lot of maps I've seen don't really have any system in place to do this. I've had to do a lot of things to consider people logging out, people going back to spawn, simply because it's a maze and not a map. Ooh, excuse me. Because it's a maze, a lot of people, once they get to the room that I have it hooked up to, they think, oh, I'm not even going to do the Tempest, and they use spawn or they kill themselves to go back to the checkpoint. And it makes it so that I have to go, or another op has to go to the circuit through the maze, manually reset it, and it's just a pain. So I had to modify it to where it would detect that someone was in the room, and then when someone's not in the room, after a certain delay, it would automatically reset the circuit. I don't want to say how long, because if anyone watches this and then decides they're going to use that information to try to get someone else in the same room as them, I just don't want that. The room is intended for a single person, and I would appreciate it if people didn't try to force another person in there. Oh, that's good stuff. I'm a very juice nummy. So I want to talk real quick about a few of my plans. I signed up for the video monetization on YouTube because if I start recording during the day, it's going to be a significant amount of time taken for that. And quite honestly, every single moment I have is very, well, I don't want to say precious, but I can't think of a better word for it. I'm currently in a master's program, which takes up a lot of time. The work for that alone takes up time. So I am going to start with the partnership program just so I can get a little bit back out of that. Hopefully it will help me pay off my student loans a little bit. And maybe even if I actually get enough people viewing it, will help me get into more things that people might enjoy seeing. I got a very good piece of advice from someone on Zero. Ocean Peace, if you're watching this is out to you. I should be doing stuff that I enjoy because then people who enjoy it too will be watching it, and I understand that completely. If I don't enjoy it, I'm not putting out very good stuff. I'm just going, okay, yeah, here we go. I don't have as much enthusiasm for stuff that I don't enjoy. On that note, I am going to continue with the Let's Play on Outpost 2. That is a game that I've always enjoyed. And I think that if anyone else gives it a try, they will enjoy it too. I have one more video for my multiplayer game with Highlander that I have not uploaded yet. I meant to upload it the week after I uploaded the previous one, but I never got around to it. And let's see what else. I'm going to be continuing with this series. I'm going to be talking about different circuits I think are very helpful. I'm going to link to Redstone Academy, because I believe if you don't have a good understanding of Redstone yet, that's a very good way to get it. I'm going to start doing time lapses as well. I enjoy building a lot, and time-lapsing a build is a great way to allow other people to enjoy it without all the time in between. And the Tekkit server had a recent reset due to a problem with upgrading one of the plugins. It caused every single non-vanilla item within any chunk that someone was standing in at the time the last shut down the server was just gone. There were huge chunks where marble used to be, entire volcanoes were gone. I was unaffected by it because at the time I was in the Nether, so my home was left perfectly intact. But I voted for the reset because it wasn't really fair to the people who spent all this time building. Most of them focused on getting the armor. I guess it's a good idea because it is PvP enabled and there are a lot of people killing each other to get stuff, but I focused mainly on building, and I made sure I was far enough away from people that no one would be able to find me. But since I'm starting over and I am, well, my home build became a server build, I went ahead and agreed to the deal because it allowed me to have the entire area that I wanted protected without waiting for the claim blocks for that. So I'm going to do some videos with Tekkit server since I spend more time there than Zero lately. Sorry, Cedric, but Tekkit is really fun. And of course he spends more time there than Zero too, so. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for now. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, evening, whatever it is for you when you watch this. It's 1:19 in the morning for me right now, so I'm going to call it a night. And the progress of the sun is rising in game because sunrise isn't that too far away here. So have a good evening. Talk to you guys next time.